So it's time to chat transfers then. And who better than the Athletic's David Ornstein? David, welcome to Inside Gooners.
Hi, Talia. How are you doing? Thanks for having me.
I'm good, thank you. How are you doing?
Very well, thank you.
Good. Good. So Arsenal fans will be desperate to hear some good news. So there's absolutely no pressure here at all. But have the last couple of results accelerated Arsenal's desire to add to the squad this month, do you think?
I'm normally the bearer of bad news, the doom monger, so apologies in advance. No, I don't think results like we've seen in the last week or so accelerate or decelerate anything unless there's kind of like a huge new injury. Obviously, there was the Saka one recently, but that was before the last couple of games. A major moment that, unexpectedly changes transfer plans. That's just not how it works at these clubs. They're working on things for many months and weeks in advance of a January or a summer window, and then they look to implement them. Yet there can be reactions and emergencies and opportunities that arise, but that tends to happen later in the window. I do think Arsenal are open to doing something, as always, if the right opportunity arises. But you've got to be true to your information as a journalist. And right now, the conversations you have at and around the club suggest that they're not likely to do a great deal of business in this window. There's nothing specific brewing right now. That doesn't mean to say that things won't change. And we've seen that in the past. So you don't want to say anything definitive. But whereas you see a club like Manchester City being really active already, they're trying to do sort of 2 first-team deals in Marmoush and Kusanov, and then a younger player in Reece. Arsenal aren't in that sort of position. And they're not alone in that. There are many clubs that are not looking particularly active at this moment in time. And that's why when I've reported in recent days that I don't anticipate Arsenal being one of the most active clubs in the January market, that's nothing controversial. So it might be a bit upsetting for fans that see a need to recruit, and you could understand that. And it's not that Arsenal are unaware of that, but at the same time, there are many factors that go into these things: the finances, the availability, players and positions that they're targeting, whether players that they want would like to come, the willingness of their clubs to sell or loan. It's not just as simple as go out and do this and that. And as much as that might frustrate people, it is the reality. And again, it's not to say that there's no desire. So let's see if things develop before the deadline. It's just that right now, there's nothing sort of advanced.
So everybody knows that Arsenal are in desperate need of a forward. Most Gooners are looking to, or would love to sign Nico Williams. Do you think this deal is even possible?
Well, Nico Williams is a long-term target of a number of clubs, and Arsenal are among them. And that's been driven by Mikel Arteta, who's a huge fan of his. He would have liked to have signed him in the past, as would Barcelona, who came close last summer. And that's where he wanted to go. Chelsea have been among his admirers, and that continues. Liverpool took a look at him. I think they decided not to pursue it last summer. Others, Tottenham and multiple clubs, understandably so, because he's 22 years old. He's one of the foremost attackers in European football. He's not at one of the so-called biggest clubs yet, so there's scope for growth. He's got explosive qualities. He's got output. It's not been as good a season this time round, but that doesn't mean that his queue of suitors is reduced dramatically. And as I reported on The Athletic, Mikel Arteta would like to sign him this month. Yeah, that's his desire. But we would all like a lot of things in life, and we don't always get them. And I think in this situation, it's looking unlikely that Arsenal will be able to get him because of the finances involved, Talia. And that means the transfer fee, which is a release clause that's active as we speak. It's a La Liga release clause, so I don't think it is determined by dates and timings and windows. It's just always there to be triggered. But it needs to be paid in full, which at the moment stands at just shy of 60 million euros. And when I say at the moment, that's because it fluctuates with inflation. And so it's a stumbling block for many clubs, the need to pay it in a lump sum. And then his salary, it's been well documented. He earns a very healthy wage at Athletic Bilbao. Congratulations to him on that. And if he was to leave, naturally your salary would need to go up. If you look at Chelsea, they've tried to bring their wage bill down with lower salaries, so problematic. Arsenal, of course, you know they've got a decent and respectable wage system, but you've got to factor everything into that financial calculation, agents' commissions, and so on, and that would take a major financial outlay from the Kroenkes or from any ownership. It's partly why Barcelona didn't manage to sign him, because of their financial situation. Now, the difference from the summer is that he is more open to a move to, say, the Premier League now than he was then, because he was focused on Barcelona. But he's not agitating to leave Athletic Bilbao in January. And that means a lot of the conversations I'm having across the industry suggest that this is a potential summer transfer. There's no guarantee that he wants to leave then or that the money will be right then, but that is more plausible than now. And so I'm afraid it's looking improbable, but you always caveat these things with never say never, because sometimes situations arise that you weren't expecting. And if you pin your colours to the mast too strongly, you could be made to look a little bit stupid.
So another two very quick questions. Another name heavily linked with Arsenal is Matheus Cunha. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, Matheus Cunha is a player that some at Arsenal really like. His qualities, his profile, and what he's been doing for Wolverhampton Wanderers. It's not going to happen in this window by the looks of it, because the likelihood is he signs a new contract at Wolves. It's a proposed 4.5-year deal. And there's a discussion over a relegation release clause. But if Wolves were to go down, he'd be sold anyway. So it's a moot point. If he stays in the Premier League, Wolves stay in the Premier League, there'll be no release clause. And so, again, it's probably one that you look towards the summer if you're Arsenal or anybody else. And he's not unhappy at Wolves, by the way. And also, we've got to be really careful here. So Arsenal like him. Arsenal like Alexander Isak. Mikel Arteta loves him too. But they invested a great deal of money in Kai Havertz. It's not Football Manager, and you just swap players in and out so easily. That was £65 million. And so, yes, a striker is on the agenda, a big striker. Yes, a wide player is on the agenda, a big wide player. But exactly who that is, that's going to remain to be seen. Something like Isak I think is unlikely even in the summer, because of the investment it will take, and Newcastle fully intend to keep hold of him. They want to renew his contract. So there's going to, sadly, I know people hate this word, there's going to have to be a bit of patience.
Oh, patience, we love it. So then one last question. How close is Cunha and Tierney to an exit this month?
Yeah, I broke the story recently that Arsenal are not going to be taking up the option to extend his contract by 12 months in the summer of 2025 to 2026. That's an acknowledgement that, Tierney will want to get on with his career and be playing regular football. It's not going to happen at Arsenal. And so, yeah, they could have activated that clause and retained some value and sold him. But in these situations, it doesn't make a great deal of sense and could complicate matters if the offers don't come in. And therefore, he'll be able to leave as a free agent. That means this month he can sign a pre-contract agreement with clubs outside of England. And Celtic are the one that pretty clearly are at the top of his agenda. I think there are other interested parties too, but there's that emotional attachment. Let's see how it develops. If a pre-contract is agreed, would Arsenal say, you know what, just go now and you can get started there in January, so you strike a deal for him to leave immediately? Or do they need him around because of the lack of bodies and injuries and his presence? He's a great lad and a very good player as well, and they try to make use of him. Also, there will be financial considerations. If he leaves Arsenal now and moves to Celtic on a lower salary, what happens to the money that he would have earned if he was to stay until the summer at Arsenal? And there's no resolution. I think conversations are progressing on that front, but there's no outcome just yet.
Oh, well, lots of good news, hey?
News, I don't know if it's good news.
I guess lots of good news. Well, anyway, thank you so much, David, for joining us. And I guess, yes, let's hope there is some really good news soon. Clive, I want to ask you then, what did you make of all of that?
Yeah, I follow David closely, so I sort of know that this what's happening, and he does not waste a single word. Trust me, it's all accurate. I think, hey, look, I'd love to see a forward come in, not just because of the fact we mixed some chances against Newcastle. I look at the volume of games. One of David's colleagues said in the press conference, last January we played 3 games last January. This January we're playing 9 games. We've got 5 home games in a row in about 21 days, it feels like. Maybe less than that. And about 16 days. That's a lot of games, right? That's a lot of football. The volume of football is huge. And we're seeing, I'm literally watching people who are struggling to move and run and look really jaded. And so to give the group that boost, I'd love to see something come in. If I look more longer term, people are not gonna like this, right? But I actually think we need to go a little bit younger. And the reason why I need to go a little bit younger is for regulation. Wages is the key factor. Wages to revenue. And I think I can see the summer, everyone's got these star names in their mind. I can see younger players coming in that could potentially be stars. There are things, like Sesko, for example, a good example, somebody with a release clause that we can manage, but the wage would be lower. And that's how this project started. We got people like Ben White. The salary, the transfer was big, but the wages were low. You had to earn that second contract. And I can see us revisiting that. And people don't want to hear it, but this is not getting a puppy for Christmas. This is about sustaining something year on year. And that's the direction I see us going in. Although I still would love to see something now because we look a bit jaded.
That makes a lot of sense. And I actually kind of agree. But this is his 5th season at Arsenal now. And my fear is that come the summer, going into next season, let's assume that it doesn't end up this year as we want it to end. Going into next season, I don't know if he can get away with bringing us a £20 million young hot prospect, as opposed to a guy that's going to get him over the line next season. So in financially, it makes total sense what Clive is saying. I just think, can you justify to the board who spent how much millions in 5 years, but let's kind of almost start the project again with 3 or 4 young hot prospects? I think he's got to drop in 2 or 3 guys that are good to go now.
I agree with Jordan. I don't mean in entirety. I think there needs to be 1 or 2 first level players coming in. But I see some younger players coming in as well, and I think that's where the turnover will be. But I think for Arsenal people now, we've got our ideas on 1 or 2 positions that we'd like to see change, and they need to be of high quality. But there's more than just the first 11. That's what I'm saying.